All right, so welcome everybody. Happy Friday. Although it's the Friday before CCSS, so hopefully we all have at least a few sessions of learning we were planning on doing this weekend. I know I'll be busy, or presenting, a number of us, I'm sure. So just doing a quick roll call. I see Matt from Region 1, Kendra from Region 2. I'm here. Let's see, no Beth or Jennifer. I see Jose from Region 6, Jane from Region 8. Matt's here from Region 9, and Barbara from 10, and Michelle from 11, and we've got our CDE folks, and Alicia Fernandez is here, who's going to be sharing some information with us in a little bit about the California Redistricting Commission. But before we get there, I wanted to turn it over to Sarah and Aileen and just see what updates we have from CDE.
Sure, thanks, Charlie. And I will start off with the requisite links for the state seal, and I'll start with that for my update. There's actually not too much new information to report for the state seal as of today. Our documents, our frequently asked questions, our insignia request form, and our second PowerPoint are making their way through the approval channels. So they're out there, they're in the tubes making their way, and I'm thinking that the next couple of weeks we'll have some more information about where to find all of those online. And also I want to say thanks to all of the regions who are doing a lot of really great work to help support the state seal. As you all know, it requires local work, and I really am appreciating all of the things that people I know are doing to get it rolling. And if there's any of these sessions or resources that you think the rest of the state could use that you want to share, please feel free to send them to me, and I will promote them in our newsletter, on Twitter, in any way that I can. We have a couple other updates for other HSS topics. Financial literacy, I'm still, working with some ideas for webinars later in the year after the state seal is up and running. I also have a new webpage update that I'm working on for financial literacy, just kind of cleaning up some links. And I also know that there have been a lot of financial literacy resources that have been developed in the past few months related to distance learning and financial literacy. So if any of you know of any of these new resources, or if you've worked with any or have any to recommend, as long as they're free and they're nonprofit, we can put them on our webpage. So if there's something out there that you think that we need to be putting on our webpage that's not there right now, and I'll put that link in a second, please just send it to me and I'll work to get it updated. And then my last update is for the Hss Spring Newsletter. We're going to hold it until probably early April so that we can include some updates about the state seal regarding those projects that are currently underway, and then also for the next State Board of Education meeting, which is March 17th and 18th. So if there's anything you'd like me to include in our newsletter, please feel free to email it my way and I will work on getting it in. I think that's it for history, social science. I'll turn it over to Aline for some literacy updates.
Thank you, Sarah. So our biggest news is that our state literacy plan is going before the State Board of Education at the March meeting. So that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. And we anticipate that the item itself and the latest and hopefully final draft of the plan will be posted online. I heard it could happen today, but if not today, probably Monday. So you'll be able to go in and visit the webpage and see the updated plan. So we will be presenting the actual final draft with a recommendation to the state board to adopt it so that we can then move forward with our grant process, which includes next steps, putting out the RFA, which will happen, we hope, in April, but it could be as late as May, but we're shooting for April. We will be providing, I think, about 8 weeks, we hope, for county offices to prepare their applications. And we will be selecting 7. These are not the geo leads. These are just 7 county offices or a consortium to carry out the work of the grant. So there is quite a bit of detail in terms of what that will look like in the state literacy plan. So you can take a look at that, and always feel free to email with additional questions. We do have an email box dedicated to that grant program, and you can send an email at any time. You could also reach out directly to me. And you can visit our web pages and stay up to date that way. So exciting stuff. The one thing I wanted to add also is that we will be also presenting, our director will be presenting to the state board some accompanying resources. One would be what we're calling a local literacy planning toolkit. And this is really the accompanying resource that provides the tools and templates and the action items that are not within the plan, because the plan itself is not intended to be an action item document. It's more pulling together resources and aligning statewide initiatives. But the toolkit will be helping our subgrantees to assist districts with writing their own local literacy plans. It's quite hefty. It's going to be all online with downloadable documents, et cetera, et cetera. So I really encourage you to tune in to the state board meeting if you have a chance, and you can see a little demo of that. We also have an online literacy resources repository that is being built out on a new platform that was just it was a soft launch actually in January. It is public, but we haven't had the official launch of it that will be made by the superintendent coming up soon once we have more resources in that repository. So a lot of great stuff, a lot of work, but we've had great support from our partners, and some of you are even involved in that. So that's my update.
Questions for Sarah or Aileen?
Sarah, I don't want to press on you, but any date you think that form may be available? People are asking.
So we are shooting. Sure, we are shooting for the end of March. Aileen, does that sound about right?
We hope so.
Kind of, yeah. So the link, I think it's done. I'm panicking that I'm missing, some error or something in it, but I want to get it to them this afternoon. So I've just been kind of looking at it every day and trying to catch little things before I officially publish it. There will probably still be something, but I'm hoping not. And so then once that's ready, it's just a matter of putting that link on our webpage, and that'll take probably about 2 to 3 weeks.
So, I've got districts that want to get on this for their seniors before they disappear, in May or June. Do you think there'll be enough time turnover?
Yes,
seals in hand.
I think so. 4 weeks is the recommendation for receiving the seals and distributing it. So if we have it posted, I would say by April 1st, that would then mean that the earliest by which people, if you're doing the 4 weeks, would be roughly May 1st, end of April. So I'm hoping that would be enough time then to get it to the seniors before they start leaving in roughly mid-May.
Yeah, that'd be great, because some of them finish earlier.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Sarah and Aileen. All right, so moving to the next item on our agenda, I want to welcome Alicia Fernandez, who is a commissioner with the California Redistricting Commission, and she is going to give us a bit of an overview of what they're doing. So Alicia, I've made you a co-host. If you want to share a screen at all, you should be able to, and go ahead and take it away.
Okay, I will try to share my screen, and thank you, Charlie, and thank you everyone for inviting me today. Let me try to share a screen and see if this works. This will be kind of like a first one for me, so. Can you see my redistricting basics?
We can.
Let me see if I can, there we go. Okay, let me try to get through this real quick. As Charlie mentioned, I'm Alicia Fernandez. I am one of the 14 commissioners that were appointed to the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. And that was a long process that took a year to finally get appointed to it. Over 20,000 people actually applied for it. So it's kind of neat to have an independent commission and be able to represent. Just a little bit about myself. I'm from Yolo County. I live in a small country, a small little town outside of Sacramento. I'm actually closer to Sacramento County than I am to some of the major cities in Yolo County. I grew up in this country, I guess, is the best I could say. But also, I have been heavily involved with the schools. I was a school board trustee for 14 years. I I had to resign when I was appointed to the commission. And then also I did work for the California Department of Education for a few years. So I was in the fiscal services division at that point. So I'm very excited to be here today to talk to you because at heart, education really is something that I'm passionate about. Being first generation, it's specifically equity in education for all. So I thank you all for all that you do, because normally we don't come back to thank the people that really make a difference in our lives, and what you're doing for education is something that obviously the majority of Californians don't realize that's happening. And so thank you very much. And I will try to do this really quick. I was going to time myself so I don't talk too long. And I'll probably just skip through a couple of the slides and we'll just go through to the next one. And just as a reminder, so I'll go through the redistricting. I think Charlie told me he's a redistricting nerd, so he knows exactly what I'm talking about. So what we basically do is every 10 years after the census is the numbers come back, and we have to, the lines for your congressional seats, as well as your state Senate, state assembly, and board of equalizations, those boundaries and districts need to be redrawn due to the new census and population numbers. And so what this slide is telling us is that at this point, we're only conducting educational sessions. So we really can't take input, or we can't take input at this point in terms of if you want to tell us how, you want your community to be drawn, or, you want to complain about how your district is right now. There'll be a time for that later on. Right now, we're just conducting educational sessions. But that's not to say that you can always go on to the website, Redraw the Lines California. We just went live. And you can actually draw your communities of interest on that website. And I'm hoping that it would be interesting to maybe get this down to like the students. I think they would have fun with that tool. It would be fun to see them draw their communities, which is probably very different than how their parents draw their communities. And so basically, I've already talked about what we're just redrawing the boundaries. I like the little picture here because one of our commissioners actually drew it, and he had it on his signature page. So it was very neat for me. And I mentioned earlier why we redraw lines, because people move, our numbers change, people die, people are born, they go from one area to another, they go out of state, within the state. So there's migration, and that's the need for the lines to be redrawn. And in terms of your voice, what's great about California is in 2008, I'm not sure if you're aware, but Californians voted to take the redistricting away from the legislature. So the legislatures used to be the ones that drew the lines. So we can only imagine if they had a vested interest in how those lines were drawn. So starting in 2010 with that census, that was the first independent commission. And I'm going to give you just a little bit of background in terms of the commission. So it's nonpartisan. We have 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 4 that are not Democrat Republican. We work together, and actually it's working out really well. So I'm very excited to meet 13 other people throughout the state that I'd never known before. And we're moving forward, and we all have vested interests to make sure that Californians feel they're represented. And as this charts, it notes that in the past, there were certain communities that were excluded in terms of how the lines were drawn. And so the purpose of an independent commission is to hopefully prevent that. And that definitely is our goal. And then of course, how it affects you. As I mentioned, the Voters First Act, that was in 2008, where the Californians took the power of drawing the lines from the legislature and gave it to the Californians to come up with an independent commission, which is what I'm on right now. Also, in terms of championing your issues, just like anyone else, you want to make sure that you are able to elect a representative that will champion and advocate for your issues. In terms of funding priorities, again, you would want to have someone represent your interest that also leads to funding in terms of like for your schools, definitely for your other services, for your fire districts, transportation, water, whatever other services are provided. So you just want to make sure, or you would hope that you could elect someone that has the same interests as you have. And in terms of the community boundaries, the redistricting process is all about the community boundaries. And a big portion of it is for us to go out and to obtain public input. Right now, we're not in that mode, but we will be in a couple of months where we will actually be going out to the various communities, and we'll have meetings to actually get input from the public in terms of what they feel their community is and why it shouldn't be split apart. But again, you can always go onto our website at redrawthelineca.org, and to get updated as to upcoming meetings, and also to go into our communities of interest tool. We're just talking about the start of our process is the census. Once the census is done, then the numbers come to us. Unfortunately, this year, because of COVID, the census is taking longer. It's taking about 6 months longer than anticipated in normal years to get the information to us. So we'll take that information, then we'll get the reapportionment information from the federal government regarding how many congressional seats we'll get. We're anticipating, unfortunately, we may lose 1 or 2 seats this go around because California's population is not rising as much as others. And so those seats will be transferred to some other states. We don't know yet, though. We don't know the final numbers. And then so the redistricting process is the process of drawing the new boundaries to determine which voters are represented by each electoral districts and how those districts will look. And this is just a really quick chart. It's just kind of showing if you have 60% orange and 40% purple, theoretically how it can be fairly split in terms of still having the 60% to 40%. And then on the far right, you have what we would call the gerrymandering, where they're splitting it up so that it favors one side or the other instead of trying to have fair representation for all. We also have 6 criteria that we have to go through. The first one is, oops, I'm going back this way. The first one is that it has to be equal, as close as possible. The districts have to be drawn to have equal population. We also have to adhere to I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to, okay, here we go. And also we must comply with the Voting Rights Act to ensure that minorities have a fair opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. The third criteria, and we go in order. So, the first one is most important, and we try to get to all of them, but we may not necessarily get to all of them based on the criteria that we have to go by. And the third one is that each district must be drawn contiguously. And that means that all parts of the district need to be connected together. Unfortunately, what's done at times is they would have one district and then there's another district in between. And then part of that first district jumps that one to get a piece of another district. But now what we're saying, it has to be connected. And number 4 is the districts must minimize the division of cities, counties, neighborhoods, and communities of interest to the extent possible. And we'll talk a little bit more about communities of interest in a little bit. Geographically compact, that means that nearby areas populations are not bypassed for more distant populations, similar to contiguity. The same concept. It doesn't necessarily refer to the density, but more to the shape of the district. And then the 6th one is nesting districts. So in that one, where we can, whenever it's practical, is we try to comprise 2 adjacent assembly districts with 1 Senate district, and also the Board of Equalization district should be comprised of 10 adjacent state Senate districts. And also the place of residence of any incumbent or political candidate, we cannot take that into consideration when we're creating the map. And the districts also cannot be drawn for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent political candidate or political party. And again, I already mentioned the four districts that we're drawing lines for, which is congressional, state Senate, state assembly. And we just just so everyone's aware, there's obviously counties are going through the same process, cities, school districts, and there's other redistricting efforts. So it can get confusing, especially when we go out and we start to talk to the public about it, because they may be confused as to what our redistricting is versus the counties versus the cities versus school districts. And actually, right before I left the school board, we had just recently redrawn the boundaries for the trustee areas in our school district. So I got a little glimpse of it before I was actually appointed to the commission. But what we'd like to encourage everyone is to get involved in as many of these redistricting efforts as possible to make sure that you give public input, and that those making the decisions are knowledgeable of the communities and how they should stay together and why they should stay together. I'm not really going to go over the history part of it. I did already mention that prior to 2010, the legislature drew the line. And I can give this presentation, Charlie, if you want it later. I can forward it to you as well. That would be fine. And just let me know.
That'd be great. We can put it in our resource folder for people.
Okay, great. Definitely. If I forget, please remind me. I'm not going to talk about the commissioner selection. It did take about a year, and it was at times like I don't want to admit it, but I might have forgotten a little bit that I had applied for it, because it was, life goes on and you're working full time, you have a family, you have other obligations as well. But needless to say, it's surprising, and actually it's nice to know that after this year-long process, you were selected. And this is also on our website too. So if you go on our website, the presentation will be on there. This is just the 14 commissioners. There's actually, we're split half and half in terms of Southern California and Northern California. So it just turned out that way. But what happens when they select the first 8 commissioners it's almost like a lottery where it's got the little balls and everyone's assigned a number. They get down to like 35 candidates or applicants. And so they select the first 8, and then the first 8 select the remaining 6. And the remaining 6 is they're trying to make it a balanced commission in terms of representation from area, political parties, race, everything. So they try to, and I feel they did a good job. In terms of what our duties are, our ultimate duty or goal, obviously, is to draw the lines. And right now, in a regular year, we would have to draw the lines by August 15th of this year. But because the census has been delayed by 6 months, we were going to try to shoot for December 15th, but we're not sure. We're still with that idea. But right now, in terms of what our duties are and how we see it, is that we have the outreach, media outreach, which is what we're doing now. So we're reaching out to the commissioners. We divided California into 11 zones. So the commissioners are reaching out to the different zones and trying to make contact with as many community-based organizations or business organizations, or also here with Sacramento County Office of Education, trying to reach out to as many as we can to partner in this effort that we have for redistricting. And so we are, right now it's an educational phase, and we move into the public input phase. That's when we actually go out and collect community input. And we also hear public testimony. And then once we actually draw draft maps, we send those out too. And then we'll have public input meetings after those maps so we can get feedback. And that's our goal right now. And here it's just showing an example for Sacramento in terms of what the congressional district looks like versus Senate, Assembly, and Board of Equalization in terms of where Sacramento is located. And right there, it also shows in terms of, right now we have 53 congressional seats, and Senate will always be 40, Assembly will always be 80, and Board of Equalization will always be 4, unless that's changed at some point in the future. And this map is just showing how we split out California into different zones, and the commissioners, there's 2 commissioners per zone. And that's what we're doing right now. Again, the zone information is on our website. And communities of interest. So I'm going to give you the legal definition of a community of interest. The community of interest is a concentrated population which shares common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. Examples include culture, areas in which people share similar living standards, use the same transportation facilities, have similar work opportunities, or have access to the same media. People can belong to multiple communities of interest. And people, so basically what we're going to go out to do is we want to receive input as to individuals, Californians. What are your communities? How do you see your community? And why should it stay together? And why should it, and should it be included with the community next to you? Yes or no? So that's the information that we will be obtaining in the next, like probably 6 months now that the census has been delayed. And it just kind of gives you different ideas. You can geographic boundaries or things you have in common. I think it would be a fun little project if you have family members or friends, if you got together and you went into our communities of interest tool online and each of you drew your own community of interest. It would be interesting to see how they're all different, because, and I was thinking of my personal family. I would have a different community of interest versus my sons and my husband. It just depends on how we see it. Does it include the family? Does it include your town? Does it include the school? Does it include your soccer or baseball or basketball friends or whatever the case may be? Or my husband might be maybe like the golf or something, who knows? Oops, did not mean to do that. There we go. In terms of participating in the process, there's the website, drawmycacommunity.org. That actually is the tool that we use. That information will be sent to us and it'll show us all of the input that we received, and you can be anonymous and submit it, or you can actually put your contact information. And it really just asks basic questions in terms of describe your community, why should it be kept together, who should be included with it, should a neighboring community not be included or included, and just so we have more information as we go forward to draw these lines. And here, ways to provide input. We already talked about the communities of interest tool, and you can also go on our website. That will also have the information, and you can also send us an email with that information. So it doesn't have to be a map. It can actually be something in writing. You can describe the area. It's whatever is most convenient and easier for you. And you can also send it by email. What we're hoping for is to try to get as much feedback as we can from Californians. So we're open, and it can be in any language. Whatever language, our community of interest tool will eventually be translated into 12 English plus 12 other languages. And whatever other input we receive, if it's in a language other than that, we will also translate that information. So regardless of how it's sent, we're going to use it and put it into our data analysis. This is just saying, as I mentioned earlier, normally in a normal year, we would be done by August 15th. But fortunately, the legislature, they realized early on that there may be a delay with the census and with the census numbers. So they did obtain approval to push our date back to December 15th. And also in the same language and the same legislation, it said, if it goes beyond, if we receive the information beyond July 31st, our deadline is extended on a day-for-day basis. And in terms of our timeline, again, this is not set in concrete because at the end of the day, it really depends on not only the census information of when we receive it, but also the further we push back drawing the lines, then you run into election issues or concerns for 2022. So we really have to work closely with others that may be impacted by a further delay in drawing the district lines. And then that's just a reminder of no public input right now, please. Thank you. And that's basically it. I went through it fast because I knew that you had other things to do. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. And And I apologize if I went through it too fast, but I was just trying to get through it so that there would be time for any questions. And again, and just so that you know, this is an educational session. And if you know of others that would like something similar, we do have a request form online and you can submit that, and then they'll work with one of the commissioners to present.
I have a question for you. Is there, to what extent, if any, does the commission plan to use like the current map as a base to create the new map?
At this point, we haven't talked about that. And I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure we're not going to use it as a base, only because we do know that the numbers have changed, especially for the congressionals. I think we see our role as starting from scratch potentially and looking at the numbers, not completely ignoring obviously what the district lines are now, but taking that information and using what the new numbers are, and as well as the communities of interest information that we have, and going from there. But in terms of the new districts, if you ever want to go online, that information's online as well of what the current districts are.
And you may have said this and I missed it, but what, to adopt the maps, is there a requirement that people from all parties in the no party like support it, or is it just a majority of commissioners?
No, so actually, because it is a nonpartisan, it's not a majority, it has to be a super majority. And as I mentioned earlier, there are 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and 4 others. And so for the maps to go forward, there has to be at least 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and 3 of the non-Democrat Republican, so that it's not one or, 2 parties, maybe getting together and agreeing to it. So that's, which I appreciate that. And there's, when we did some of our higher level hirings, it's the same. There's times when a majority is okay, and there's times when we have to do a super majority.
Alicia, do you anticipate any legal challenges to the remapping?
Always.
Do you have a question then?
Oh, wait, this is being filmed, right? Or recorded.
Well, I was looking at the map and I noticed that it seemed pretty equitable. I mean, obviously the term that we want to stay away from is gerrymandering. And I know there are other states in the country that are kind of infamous for that, but looking at California's map, it looks fairly like the shapes aren't salamander-like.
Right. If you look at some states, it's very oddly shaped. Yes, we expect that we will be sued, but also we can't move forward. Like, we can't have that as something to hinder us from moving forward to what we believe is going to be equitable and fair maps. So yes, Jose, I think we will be sued, but at the end of the day, I truly believe that whatever maps we draw, we as a commission will feel that they are our fair representation of Californians.
Is there a point, and this may be a question that none of us can answer this right now, but when you guys, I'm assuming you're doing everything virtually right now, is there like an idea of when like in-person outreach starts to happen, or,
I wish I knew that what the crystal ball was going to tell us. I will say that all 14 of us, or the majority of the commissioners, are very anxious to get out there. I mean, that's really what, I don't want to say that's what we signed up for, but that's what we signed up for in terms of we anticipated that was going to be our main mode of communication, was in person, not via Zoom. So, and that's why it's even more important. We've reached out to Census to get more information as to how they conducted their outreach efforts, because it was all done the majority of it was done virtually, or they had to really step back and try to be creative as to how they would get that information. I had talked with Frank earlier. Because he's in my region, and he talked about, I think he might be a redistricting nerd too, Charlie. I'm not sure. You might have competition there. But he talked about how with census, they would give the flyers to the schools and the, school districts, and then, down to the school level to give to the students. And that's what we're maybe hoping to do also, is we'll have flyers, we'll have information, but we are really anxious to get out there. So hopefully, I'm hoping at some point in the summer, we'll be able to go out there, but we don't know. We really don't know if, it's looking better, right? But we don't know if something else is going to come up, but we're hopeful. Okay.
Other questions
you.
for Alicia?
Okay.
Well, thank you, Alicia, for joining us. I really, really appreciate it and hearing from you. And I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with as you do your work. And thank you for sharing your slides with us. And if anybody wants to get in contact with her, I've got her email address, and you just feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And again, thank you for all that you do. I really do appreciate it. Education, like I said, is my passion. So thank you so much.
Next thing on our agenda, it looks like we have quick news and updates. So I've just got I talked with, okay, let me back up. Next Wednesday, right? We have our morning session, follow-up session with Myron Duick. So he's coming back to work more with us. And I talked with him yesterday to kind of go over like what that day will look like. And I can give you an idea of what we talked about. And then if there's anything that you guys want to add or go more in depth on or have any feedback, we can still shape what Wednesday is going to look like. So he's waiting kind of for me to provide feedback from our meeting this morning, as he knew that, that I was meeting with you all. So the notes he sent me of what he's going to use, he wants to build upon the last meeting that we had. So I think he had said that there were a few things like, he had planned for last January that he didn't get to. So if there's anything that he didn't quite make it to, he's going to bring that in on Wednesday. He wants to take a deeper dive into looking at rubrics, like kind of common errors or considerations, ways to make them less subjective, more objective to use, and how to create those. He showed me something he's used called the Beliefs and Practices Audit, which is a great, you may be familiar with it, I hadn't seen it, but a great way a tool to use with teachers to kind of say like, what do we believe? And then how does that compare to what our current practice is? So he talked about introducing us to that, something that we can bring back. A new different assessment tool called a brown bag assessment. I don't know the details on that, but my understanding from talking with him was that it was a sort of like reach into the bag and pull out one of the multiple types of assessment, so that it's a way of getting different types of assessment out there. And then he's got a couple bullets called major project outline, which I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if we talked about that, and how grading changes. So that's like the bullets. And then having some time in breakout rooms to talk through the beliefs audit and the rubrics, and developing rubrics. So those are the bullet points he kind of sent me yesterday afternoon. But if there's something that you're not hearing that you'd really like to hear, then I am here to take those notes and to provide those to him. Or if there's something you heard that you're like, no, we don't need that, let me know too, because we don't want to waste our time.
Charlie, do you know if he will single out the 1 point rubric, the single point rubric? Because I know that's districts are reaching out to me. And I am not proficient in that piece. Do you know if that's part of his rubric overview? Because it's
not that I know of, but I can bring that back to him for sure.
Thank you.
It sounds great. It sounds very comprehensive, and it sounds like from the last times what the folks really wanted to dig deeper in, and very timely. So thank you.
I kind of gave him an overview of what we plan to do in Region 3 to build on what he'd done, and I was like, the other regions may be going in the same direction, or they may be going different. So that's why we wanted to talk to you guys for sure. Any other thoughts or feedback? if you think of anything, I put you kind of on the spot here. So if you think of anything this morning after we log off of this, feel free to email it to me. I think, Myron will be kind of developing this a little bit over the weekend. So anything we get back from today is good. And then Frank and I have a check-in with him on Tuesday morning as well. So, so feel free to send any thoughts that come your way with regards to what Wednesday might look like. All right, regional reporting. We're a small group right now, so this should go hopefully pretty quick. I have two that I'll do them first so I don't forget. And then I will turn it over to you guys. Justin in Region 7, sorry, the dog wants out. 1 second. Yes. My computer's right by the back door, so I get interrupted by her a lot. So Justin wasn't able to join us today, and he sent along to Marina his quick update. He said Region 7 held their February community of practice, starting their work on developing an anti-racist mindset. They shared resources from the statewide community of practice from Gwen, Ken, and Lisa. They polled their participants on the topic to see what they would like to dive into for their next CP in April, and they're really interested in social emotional learning strategies for history, social science. So that's Justin's update. And Matt in Region 9 sent me his update as well because he knew he'd be leaving us at 10. And he said they're planning an elementary lesson study in partnership with the Global Education Project. They're planning on a 2-part webinar on choices in Little Rock with Facing History and Ourselves. And they're creating a working group to develop a K-12 continuum of civic learning. So those are his updates from Region 9. All right, Matt, do you want to tell us what's going on in Region 1?
Sure. So we did, I think I mentioned last time, we were recording a podcast. We did a podcast and just put it out there this week for Seeing Our Native Students. It's a former teacher, really amazing resource, free resources. So they just created their nonprofit about a year ago. So take a look at some of the resources in there. She'll talk about them. And that's great. And then we, last week, we had Gail Roman Santa from Filipino contributions to the Farmworker movement, and Jane was there as well. She was amazing presenter. She talked about her book, and I'll put the recording of the oops, that's the same one. Sorry, let me get the recording. 1 second. So I have the recording of the presentation where she talks about the book, but she's a really good speaker, really great about telling the story and makes it accessible to people. So we did that. And then we have on the 31st, another state seal workshop with a few districts from Humboldt and one from Lake, and then a couple more from Sonoma who are going to participate in that one. So.
Kendra, Region 2.
Sorry. Right now it's hard to say like what is history and what is, I have this other equity grant, and we've sort of like combined forces at this point since I'm basically out of money for history. So now everything is through the lens of the equity work. So we're continuing this summer with California Global Ed Project, and we are going to develop book bag program, trying to get different schools to not just do it a couple times, but to really have that be homework for the entire year that they develop their book bag program. So that means buying 30 books for the teachers, doing 2 days worth of stipends, lesson writing. So that's exciting. And then I'm actually having Myron take a cohort of teachers over the summer, and he's gonna it's going to be super small, like 15 teachers, 3 different high schools, really make these changes in their classroom around assessment and grading, and then go back and report how those changes influenced, throughout the fall to kind of dictate where schools will be going with grading and making changes in assessments to all of their departments. So we're focusing in on history and ELA as our groups that we'll be doing that with as like the trial group, and then hoping that it sort of extends out into the rest of the school. So those are kind of our two pieces now, and then just finishing off our learning networks with the seal of civic engagement and the Every Book is a Social Studies book. So we had Tom come last month and it was so amazing. My teachers were like, I did not know I liked geography. So these K-5 teachers felt like, just to be able to respect them in a way that they feel like they are getting a content lesson, a 15-minute quick lesson in, what does it mean to teach geography as a discipline and not just teach where things are. So we'll do the same with civics and econ, and then we'll be done.
Great. In Region 3, we're just kind of plugging along. We had the Pulitzer Center came out last month and did an overview of the 1619 project curriculum. Pretty well attended. It was one of our more excited groups, I would say, that we've had this year. And it was a lot of new faces, which is really cool. It was a lot of people who may not have had history, social science on their radar, but that got them interested. And so that was really fun. We had Dr. Paula Austin come out last week, I think it just was, or come out virtually. She's at Boston University, but used to be at Sac State. So she's has some local connections. And she did a really great presentation on just ways that youth had pushed back against Jim Crow laws in DC back in the 30s. So that's kind of where she'd written a book and done some research around it, but really bringing this idea of like civic engagement, especially among Black youth, to push against restrictive laws, but outside of the context of the 60s, which is where we kind of like learn it all. And so showing that it had been going on in a previous generation as well, and on what the 60s had built on. So that was really, really interesting and cool to see. This month, our next session is on the 17th, and we are doing, we're going to put together some stuff around Myron's work that he shared with us and bring some of those assessment practices to our region. And then at the end of the month, I believe, I know on the 24th we have a session. I think it's on Teaching California, or it's those picture books. I have to look. I can't remember off the top of my head which one's which, but something around that idea, something with the history project is coming out on the 24th for us. So like I said, we're plugging along. Jose, Region 6.
I feel like I'm repeating myself, but we're still in the middle of lesson studies. It's K-12. We have 4 teacher groups. It's working well. We'll finish up in 2 weeks and get an idea of their takeaways. I think that's the biggest thing, and they're going to do a share out. We're debating whether we do a second round, so it's kind of well attended. We're also thinking about doing a summer institute and thinking about different ways of how that may look and tying it into like summer school. I know that's a big issue in our area in terms of, one is just having summer school because our teachers may be interested. And so I'm wondering if we offer an institute with a stipend, and that way we can kind of entice and also do a little bit of PD, and kind of a PLC style. So I would love to hear if anybody else in the regions is doing something similar, thinking about the summer. We're also doing kind of a combination follow-up with the Q conference and paying teachers registration, and they do come back, debrief, share resources, and then create a bank and then share it out to our community of practice in the region. And I think I hear a lot about Myron do it, and for us, I think we're planning on bringing him back next year and doing it an all call. So for all content areas, help pay for it, use some DA money, and then do follow-up with history. And just move from there.
Okay, Region 8.
There we go. Good morning. And Matt, thank you for the invitation. Everybody's been sharing invitations, and it's been so wonderful to be able to be a little fly on the wall and get more information. And that was a great presentation, Matt. So thank you. I really learned a lot. We just had Damon out here, Damon Hss, and he was fabulous as always. And we learned a lot about the Constitutional Rights Foundation and a lot of resources and excellent activities for our folks. So that was great. We are now going to have next time Rob Darrow, and we're talking more about the FAIR Act. We've done that before, but we really need to dig a little bit deeper with being more timely and some requests that we're having from the district. So we're excited about that. We're also looking at next steps for grading practices. We have one of our districts that has really taken this on, and they've just gone to their board. They have ARs, and we just had them at a symposium and to share with our other districts how they are looking at equitable grading practices. So I think that we would be looking forward to doing more of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And last but certainly not least, Barbara, Region 10.
Am I unmuted? All right, there we go. So I'm not sure what day it is or what week it is, but I do know that we are bringing out the News Literacy Project for a series of 2 presentations for us, and they're really going to dig into misinformation and how misinformation spreads. So we spend a little bit of time with John Silva, one of their presenters, and he is anxious and ready to talk about this. He was a little frightening because when we met with him, his job at the News Literacy Project is to go into the deep, dark side of rumors and how they spread. And some of the things he was sharing with us was like, I don't think I want to go down that rabbit hole. So we made it a little bit of misinformation, but not going into that dark side of misinformation for our teachers. And he'll be with us twice, and then we are working to present region-wide, if you will, the state seal of civic engagement in our final April meeting that we have with them. We have a team of folks who are putting together a real engaging, interactive slide presentation, because of course we're still virtual, to get our teachers excited about it. And my job again is to reach out to Apple Valley High School to find out what they're doing, because they are actually awarding it this year to their seniors. And so it'll be interesting to identify how they came to identify the criteria for their district. So I'm anxiously awaiting that one. We are also starting a kickoff. I know that's weird to start a kickoff in March, but we have spent time with John Omerode, Clarity for Learning author, works with Fisher, Fry, and Hattie, and we spent 6 sessions with him, synchronously and asynchronously. I know that sounds funny, but he trained those of us in our county office who are curriculum specialists or curriculum coordinators on writing learning intentions and success criteria, part of the elements of Clarity. And we are now having a cohort, different cohorts, but we have over 23 of our 33 districts represented in PLCs that start on March 9th, and hopefully disseminating the teacher clarity message on why learning intentions and success criteria are important to student success and learning. So that's why I just messaged Kendra, because I think the nice piece after this would then bring Myron on board as well. So I know we're nearing the end, but Frank and I continue to do great and amazing work in Fontana Unified. They've asked us back to continue the work next year, and they adopted history new textbooks K-12. We are working K-8 right now on creating curriculum maps with their teachers so that those maps are created for their teachers. And so that there's buy-in, not pacing guides, but curriculum maps and looking at the bigger themes in history. And Charlie, thank you for sharing with Frank how to have our teachers whittle down those big themes. So the work that you did with, I think it was the history project that you had, right? That was exceedingly helpful. I think we finish at the end of April with them, and then start up again with them in August. So I would love to breathe, but I'm not sure when I'll have time to do that. But it's exciting work, and our network is growing I mean, we have 80 people now a part of our network, and some of them aren't just history teachers. They just like hanging out with the history folks. So that's kind of fun too.
The history folks are the best folks.
They are the best folks.
And I'll say that while it's recording. I'm okay with that. So that pretty much brings us to the end of our agenda, a little bit early, but that is totally fine. I just want to plug again, as you all know, the CCSS conference is this weekend. We've had a series of pre-conference sessions this week that have been really well attended and have gone off really well. Tonight is the keynote panel at 6 o'clock in the award ceremony at 7:30. Those are both free registrations. If you're not registered for the conference, you can still attend on the CCSS website. The general membership meeting's at 5:30, and at 11 this morning's confab too. So if you have an hour to fill from 11 to 12 this morning, feel free to join us there. Hopefully we'll see you this weekend at CCSS. Personally, I'll be very glad when Sunday night comes and I don't have to think about it ever again. So that's as I'm sure you can understand.
Oh, Charlie,
Yeah.
Are we going to have any time in the near future to talk about educating for American democracy?
That's a really good question. So I'll bring that to Frank as maybe something to put on the agenda for our next meeting is April 2nd. And that might be a great thing to put on there. Yeah. Yeah, especially with when we, have more of us around, would be good. So.
I think too, Charlie, just one more thing. It would be nice to, I don't know, we have sort of done this, but just have like maybe 5 minutes to drop all of our state seal resources into one place and maybe talk about some of the things. Cause I think we're all sort of at different places and we're all working with different teachers. And I'm really struggling with my junior high group and kind of what to do with them. So I don't know if there's space and time to have a conversation, just another check-in.
I'm sure there could be. And I think even on that April 2nd, I'll reach out to Frank, see if he's got anything already put on the agenda for that day, or if he's kind of looking for some things to add and we'll get it sorted out.
Thanks, Charlie.
You're welcome. Anything else? All right. Have a great weekend. Hopefully I'll see some of you guys virtually.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, everyone.